Hey guys, welcome to Motorides. My name is Amit and this is the new Ronin by TVS, a motorcycle which doesn't fit into any slot whatsoever. And if you're wondering as to what it is and want to call it something, whether it's a cruiser or it's a scrambler, let me be very clear at the very outset, it's nothing. It's a completely new way of looking at motorcycles by TVS, and TVS has done it on purpose because they want this motorcycle to do a lot of things. This motorcycle is meant to take you to your commute, to work, to your weekend ride, and do some soft roading as well. So it has many facets, and that's exactly what TVS wants this motorcycle to be for the young impulsive rider who wants to do a lot of things at the same time. This motorcycle is one versatile product, so it doesn't slot into any category and wants to be doing a lot of things at the same time. And if you really ask me, TVS has really succeeded in making it the product that they wanted it to be. In my books, this is the most impressive product of this year and in many years. One of the most amazing motorcycles that I've driven in a very, very long time, and I'm pretty sure you'd be amazed by its capabilities when you hear about them. So I would request you to stay on this video until the end because you are going to get an understanding of some amazing things about this motorcycle. Now, you must have seen the walkarounds of this motorcycle earlier. So I'll start off with the performance, and at the heart of this motorcycle is this engine. And with this engine, TVS, who have been known to be making high revving engines, performance oriented engines, have thought in a different manner and have made this engine a very, very usable engine with very high low end torque. At its heart, this motorcycle is somewhat like the classic 350 or the Highness, where at the very bottom of the rev range you have truckloads of torque, so it can travel at very low speeds in very high gears. This engine essentially is the same unit as the Apache 204V but has been bored down. So while the Apache 204V has an over square engine with the additional bore here, this one is a perfect square engine, 66 into 66 mm. And what that essentially does is that it gives that edge over the Apache 204V in the lower end of the rev range. It gets 4 valves and it is an SOHC oil cooled unit. But if you really compare it with the Apache 204V, which obviously is a smaller engine, this one is 226cc. The power output here is not better than the Apache. The Apache produces 20.8 PS while here you have 20.4 PS, but the big difference is where that power is produced. So while the Apache produces its peak power at around 8,500 RPM, this one produces its peak power at 7,750 RPM. Now that's not much of a difference, I know, only about 750 RPM. But if you look at the torque, this motorcycle produces a lot more torque than the Apache. 3 more Newton meters, and the peak torque here is 19.93 Newton meters, while on the Apache it's only 16.82. But get this, this produces its peak torque at 3,750 RPM, which is ridiculously low for this kind of a motorcycle, while the Apache produces it at 7,500 RPM, which is double that RPM. So you can only imagine how much more torque it's producing at, and at how much lower RPM, and that really is the very basis of this story. Here you have a ton of torque at the bottom of the rev range. Now in terms of weight, it's slightly heavier at 160 kgs. This is about 8 kgs heavier than the Apache, but it has a lot more equipment and has a bigger engine. The wheelbase is also about 4 mm longer, but generally if you compare it with the cruisers, the wheelbase here is shorter for agility. So 3 Nm of additional torque, oil cooling, and an engine which really is as beautiful as it gets for a 225cc category. Now, if you talk about this engine, there are a lot of innovations that have gone into this engine to make it so smooth and so beautiful. So first and foremost, the cooling has been really focused upon, and the cooling system here is advanced. You have this bigger oil cooler, you have these larger fins to keep the engine from making stupid noises when you are putting it under load. A lot of technology has gone into it, and the camshaft here is oil dampened. It also gets a crankshaft with shell bearings for a quiet engine even in loaded conditions. Like if you're going with 2 up on an incline, it would still be quiet and won't heat up easily at all. It gets a silent starting system, and it gets a high inertia flywheel for a very, very consistent low idle stability. And in addition to all of that, the electronics and the software architecture on this motorcycle is modern and upgraded, so that not just is it easy to diagnose it for problems, but also to upgrade and scale it. So this sits on a new and modern electronic and software platform as well. Now what all of that really does is endow this motorcycle with a character which you would not have seen anywhere in 200 to 250cc category. This is a different animal altogether, and the amount of torque that it has lower down the rev range, the relaxed manner in which it rides is absolutely beautiful. I have not ridden a motorcycle like this in a very long time, and if you are someone who likes enjoying riding at a relatively languid, easy pace, this motorcycle is just going to have you smitten. From as low as 25-26 kilometers per hour in 5th gear, this motorcycle pulls on, and that should give you some idea about this motorcycle's ability to pull from really low speeds in higher gears, and that really makes it very suitable not just for city conditions but also for highway cruising, where you'd be completely relaxed. In 4th gear, you can have some sense of movement from as low as 20 kilometers per hour. In the 3rd gear, from 15 kilometers per hour, there is absolutely no spluttering, no stuttering. At the lower end of the rev range, this motorcycle performs beautifully, and it starts picking up from as low as 1200-1300 RPM, which is ridiculous, especially coming from TVS, which is generally known to make higher revving products. So in that sense, this is a very tractable motorcycle. The throttle response also is very quick, the fueling is amazing, and there is absolutely no vibration across the entire rev range. So even when you're nudging 9000, which is this motorcycle's red line, you would not feel like this motorcycle is vibrating or resisting. Creamy smooth engine and a suspension setup which is meant to keep you super comfortable. So whether you would be using it for city riding or on the highway, or maybe for off-roading, because for off-roading also you need torque lower down the rev range, this motorcycle really fits the bill for a lot of activities. So that really is its USP. Now in terms of cruising speeds, if you're at 100 kilometers per hour, you'll see about 6800 RPM in 5th gear, and at 80 you'd see 5500 RPM. In terms of gear speeds, 1st gear will take you to 40 kilometers per hour, 2nd gear will take you to 64 kilometers per hour. In the 3rd gear it goes to 90 kilometers per hour, and in the 4th gear to 105 kilometers per hour. And the top speed, the true top speed of this motorcycle is 120. Of course, it will show a little higher on the speedo. Now that is about the engine and the performance, but the suspension, the chassis and the mechanicals of this motorcycle also have been really honed to offer you that really comfortable yet very agile kind of an experience. The wheel here is offset for agility, and the chassis here is a twin cradle system, very stiff in terms of the chassis, so it's very rigid, but the suspension here is tuned for comfort, and it really shows. When you ride this motorcycle, it goes over bad surfaces really smoothly. The wheelbase here is a little longer than the Apache 204V, but much smaller than the other cruisers. So it's very stable, very planted in a straight line, very stable in crosswinds, but still very agile and nimble. Of course, it's not a sport bike where you're meant to carve corners and go around a racetrack, but this can really go very stably in a straight line. The braking is really good, and it can also go around corners in a fairly stable manner. The suspension here is soft. At the rear you have a 7-step adjustable monoshock with gas charge shock absorbers, but around corners this would be a lot better than a lot of other cruiser motorcycles that you have. So it's better than them, but obviously it's not a sport motorcycle. You have 41 mm dia upside down forks which really look meaty, and in this top of the line variant with this golden shade really endow this motorcycle with a lot of visual appeal. These tires, block pattern tires, can do on and off roading, and a 110 section, 17-inch wheels up front and at the rear, 300 mm disc, twin channel ABS for the top of the line variant. There are lower variants also with single channel ABS, and there you have single tone and dual tone color schemes but single channel ABS. The ground clearance is a very good thing here, and you have 181 mm of ground clearance which would take it over bad surfaces very easily, which brings me to the exhaust. And this is by far the best sounding 200-225cc motorcycle that I've come across. It has that bassy beat that you generally associate with motorcycles like the Classic 350 or the Highness. It's not as bassy because the engine is not as big, but it definitely will make you think like you're really riding something much bigger than the capacity that this motorcycle has. And it has a very nice beat to it. At lower rev range, this motorcycle really sounds like magic and sounds a lot better than what you would have experienced in this segment at all. TVS have really worked on this exhaust and it shows. Before I show you that, the start here is super silent, absolutely no noise. Just see, no noise. And this exhaust, oh my god, really beautiful. It gets a side stand engine inhibitor as well, and when you're riding at speeds which are not very high through the rev range, at low revs, when you're just ambling around or going at easy speeds, that exhaust really sounds amazing. So that again really matches the character of this motorcycle. Apart from that, one very important thing that really fits this motorcycle's character is the seating and the ergonomics, designed to keep you comfortable over really long distances. And as you can see, the foot pegs are front set, and the rider triangle is very easy, upright handlebar. The seat size is very good at the rear, but tapers up front so that you can extend your legs down to the ground. I am 5 feet 10, the seat height here is 795 mm, and I can put my feet down very easily with a bend in my knees. So even the shorter ones amongst you won't have any problem riding this motorcycle. It's very easy to maneuver. The weight here is 160 kgs, which is on the higher side, but it's not difficult to maneuver at all. Ergonomics, very comfortable. The suspension is beautifully set up, and once you sit on this motorcycle, from the very moment you sit on this motorcycle, you would realize that you are riding something really comfortable. It really takes in its stride speed breakers and bad surfaces like a pro, and this by far is the most comfortable motorcycle I have ridden this year, and in many years. This is really amazing the way this suspension behaves. It has its downsides when you're really going to corner it hard, but for most part it's really amazing. Now, one word that I want to put here is that if you think that you can ride the pegs while off-roading, it doesn't present itself as a very peg riding friendly kind of a motorcycle, because this tank is quite wide, and when you ride the pegs, it tries to set your legs apart, so you are not in a very comfortable position. Plus these handlebars could also have been higher. But if you want to be going soft roading, this motorcycle is pretty capable and takes in its stride bad surfaces very easily. Now this tank here is 14 liters, and it gets an aircraft style fuel filler cap, and if you look at the switchgear here, it's top notch. The mirrors give you a very good view of what's coming from behind, and they are very sturdy. They don't wobble at high speeds. Plus this switchgear quality is fantastic. You have this engine kill switch here, you have this mode button where you have urban and rain ABS modes, where the rain mode has a little less bite than the urban mode. You have the hazard switch, you have this electric starter system which is super silent, one of the most silent systems that I've seen. Day flasher, high beam and low beam. This information button is for the smart connect, where you connect your phone through Bluetooth with this instrument console, and you will get turn-by-turn navigation, music, and messages, notifications, etc. If you are getting a call, you will get a notification. So all of that can be handled through this. You also get your distance to empty and your average speed, your tacho, speedo, you have a clock, and you have a fuel gauge. So all of that is right there. You have some telltale lights as well, as you can see here. So all of that is amazing. And on the top of the line variant, which is the 3-tone color variant, you also have this span adjuster on the brake as well as the clutch lever. Now this motorcycle also comes with slipper and assist clutch, so if you really want to ride it hard, it really presents itself for that. These scoops are really nicely made, and your knees sit here very nicely, but again not very suitable for standing on the pegs. Now seat, as I mentioned, very nicely done, beautifully done, and a lot of science has gone into finalizing this riding position, and I must really praise TVS for this seating position, one of the most comfortable, along with the suspension setup, really amazing. The paint quality is top notch, and the seat for the pillion also is not too high, so enough space, not too high, a very functional, very neatly done grab rail. So if you are looking at a motorcycle from a family use perspective as well, this motorcycle fits the bill. It can have a pillion rider sitting here very comfortably all day long, so in that sense one of the most comfortable pillion seats as well. Brakes 300 mm up front, at the rear 240 mm, and a lot of components on this motorcycle. If you look at the color, like the golden fox, like this exhaust, is different. It's in a different shade on different variants, so you really have to see which colors you like. Like those forks are black on the lower variants. This is brushed aluminum on some other variants. So the color schemes are very different and you'll really have to see which colors you like. Similarly, this fender element also is of a different color on the other variants. Lighting all around is LED, and as you can see here, the headlamp gets this T-shaped DRL, which is very nice. Higher up you have the low beam, at the bottom you have the high beam, and TVS claims that this is the most advanced LED system within this class. You also get LED blinkers, which is a great thing to have. And not just are these LED, they are also shaped in the form of an arrow. At the rear also you get a rather simplistic but all LED lighting design, and it's a curved simplistic light, but it looks really nice. And at the rear also you have the LED blinkers with arrowhead design. The chain cover is also a different design and it's fully covered, so even if you're riding in the mud, it offers good protection. Here you have the keyhole for removing the seat. Another important thing that you'd probably be interested in knowing is the fuel efficiency, and by virtue of the fact that a lot of new technology has gone into this engine, and this also produces more torque lower down the rev range. It's smoother, torquier. This will offer you slightly better fuel efficiency than the Apache 200 4V, and on the highway, if you're riding with a very light right hand, you'd be able to get in excess of 40 kilometers per liter, and within the city also 30 to 35 kmpl should not be a problem at all. So the fuel efficiency of this motorcycle is also one of its big virtues. Now in terms of handling, as I mentioned, it's very stable in a straight line, very stable in crosswinds, not exactly a supreme corner cover, but reasonably good around corners as well. The front wheel is offset for good maneuverability. The weight is not exactly the lightest, but by virtue of the fact that the seat is not very high, you would be able to maneuver it quite easily in tight spaces as well. And overall, the real highlight of this bike is its stability in a straight line and the beautiful suspension, which really absorbs everything from speed breakers to bad surfaces off the road. It's definitely one of the most stand-out suspension systems that I've come across in a very long time. Beautiful, beautiful ride. And whether you are going at a high speed, 100, 110 in a straight line on a highway, or trying to carve corners at a moderate pace, this motorcycle really adapts itself to a variety of road conditions, surfaces. So all of that is really nice. The braking here is not the best in the segment, primarily because you have block pattern tires, which do a good job in terms of grip. By the way, we have wet conditions here, and these tires perform rather well. They have Remora compound on them, which is advanced, and TVS has made sure that these tires really offer good grip both on and off the road. So the grip is not a complaint, but with these block pattern tires, generally the bite that you get with more road oriented tires, you generally don't get that on the brakes. The brakes are good, they're very good, but the feel that you get here is a little different from sharper motorcycles like say the Apache RTR 200 4V, but by all means these brakes are more than sufficient, so no complaints there. You also have this crash guard, which of course is a very useful accessory. You will also get a USB socket as an accessory, not as standard fitment, so that again is something that you need to know. You'll also get TVS's GTT or glide through traffic technology to make it even more usable within city if you're riding it in stop-start traffic, so you can ride in higher gears without having to shift too much. TVS has also worked a lot on the center of gravity of this motorcycle, and the weight distribution here is 50-50, low center of gravity, very, very stable motorcycle, very enjoyable, totally vibe free. And as I mentioned at the outset, this is one of the most exceptional motorcycles I have ridden this year. I cannot praise this motorcycle enough. Now, if you want to slot it somewhere, if you want to call it something, a cruiser or an ADV or whatever, a scrambler, this is not going to fit anywhere. And that brings me to the aesthetic part of this motorcycle. So either you're going to love it or you're not, because this is not a template that you have seen before. So if you're trying to find something that you want in this motorcycle, for example, if you want to look at it as a cruiser or as a scrambler, you'd probably find it a little out of shape. But what I can really tell you is that it's a very muscular looking, very stout, very strong looking motorcycle, and these 41 mm dia forks, especially in this golden shade, really give it a lot of character. So if you really don't want to slot it somewhere, you'll probably really like it. But if you're looking for a certain template, then probably you'll find it a little odd, which it is, because it's not a motorcycle like any other shape or form that you've seen before. But it really is very versatile and can don a lot of hats. and can do a lot of stuff. And in that context, I really want to say that this is a really complete kind of a motorcycle for our environment. It looks premium, it feels premium, is loaded with technology, can take you to your office and back every day, take you for your weekend rides, take your family on board, can go off the road to an extent, gives good fuel efficiency, is very refined, and a motorcycle that can do all of that stuff really has to stand out from the crowd, and it really does. Very comfortable, very smooth, very refined, and very stable as well. Pricing for the base variant starts at 1.49 lakh rupees. The top of the line variant goes all the way to 1.7 lakh rupees. The base variant is solid. The mid variant is two-tone with single channel ABS, and the top variant has a lot of goodies like twin channel ABS and these adjustable levers along with a three-tone color. If you are going to be buying a motorcycle within this segment, I really cannot recommend more. I cannot really recommend enough that you go ahead and try this motorcycle, because it's really very different from whatever you may have ridden before. Very beautiful, very nice, and for the price, I really think TVS is offering a lot of value. More than anything, it is really a versatile motorcycle which can fit in a lot of your needs and can be the ideal single motorcycle for someone. I really hope that I was able to answer all your questions about this motorcycle in this detailed review. Still, if you have any questions, put them down in the comment section. We really work very hard on our reviews. We do a lot of research, and if you liked our work, do hit that like button, subscribe to Motoroids, do share this amazing machines video with your friends through WhatsApp and Facebook. And until next time, this is your friend Amit Changani signing off. Rev hard, rev free, and ride safe.